Oh, yeah, 'cause you were right there. Okay. Actually, could you pour me a cup, Peter? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I sit in the sound room anyway. Oh, who's the sound guy? Eric? Eric? Okay. Is that are we re- are we ready? Is everybody ready? Hello and welcome to the Capitola Planning Commission meeting. This meeting is open to the public with both in-person attendance at City of Capitola Council Chambers at 420 Capitola Avenue and remote attendance if possible. Planning Commission and staff are attending in person and remotely via Zoom. There are several ways for the public to watch and participate. Information on how to join the meeting via Zoom and make public comment during the meeting is available on our website, cityofcapitola.org, on the meeting agenda. The public can also live stream the meeting on the city's website or on YouTube. As always, this meeting is cablecast live on Spectrum Communications, Cable TV, Channel 8, and AT&T Uverse Channel 99, and is being recorded to be rebroadcast on the following Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 71 and Spectrum Channel 25. A recording of this meeting will also be available on the city's website after the meeting. Our technician tonight is Eric, and as a reminder, please turn off all your cell phones during the meeting. Roll call. And
Commissioner Esty,
Present.
Commissioner Westman,
Here.
Commissioner Wilk,
Here.
Vice Chair Jensen,
Present.
and Chair Christensen.
here. Pledge of Allegiance.
Public, one nation.
All right. Item 2, additions and deletions to the agenda.
There are no changes to the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Additional materials, item 3.
We did receive additional materials for tonight's agenda. Specifically, there were 9 emails for item 7A and 1 email for item 7B. All of these have been added to the agenda packet and published online and distributed to the public via our newsletter.
Thank you. Item 4, oral communications. Members of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the chair. Individuals may not speak for more than once during oral communications. All speakers must address the entire legislative body and will not be permitted to engage in dialogue. Is there any? Please write your name.
Hi, my name is Goran Klapic. Today at 6:03 a.m. I made a call because I was walking to the gym in Capitola from where I live in SoCal. I found methamphetamine or cocaine at a gas station, and I called the CPD. When I did that, the officer, I don't know what he was thinking. He didn't comprehend what I wanted to come across with, but I wanted to tell him that I found. So I walked to the station to hand over what I found, and I was met with a lot of anguish. You know, like he didn't. I don't know why he reacted like that. I was a little bit shocked, so I went back home after the gym, and I called a friend that I know from the Naval Postgraduate School to talk to him what he thinks I should have done. So I don't know what to do if I find stuff like that in the near future. I'm just not gonna call anymore the CPD. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Nope, hearing none. Moving on to item 5, Planning Commission staff comments.
Sorry. I have an update for you and the public. I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that Capitola Avenue is scheduled to close for the bridge over Highway 1 starting Monday, March 11th, so this coming Monday. And then also on March 23rd at 7 p.m., Highway 1 will be closed in order to demolish the bridge. And it will be a closure from 7 p.m. on Saturday night, the 23rd, and all day on the 24th. There'll be more messaging going out, but just want to make sure that everyone's aware. And that's the update. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any commission comments?
I have a comment or question. Was there any training coming up? I know the League of Cities, I went last year, I think, Mr. Esty. Was there any training coming up or any future activities that we could participate in this year or any other commissioners?
I can look into that. There's definitely the APA, American Planning Association, California conference in the fall, and then I can check in on the League of Cities training.
Thank you.
Any?
I can also add that there's a local government academy being hosted by city staff and the city manager's department. Members of the public can apply to learn more about how local government works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that class starts next week. So, and folks can, how long until the cutoff?
The registration may be closed at this time, but that is occurring next week.
Okay. So if anyone's interested, let me know and we could make that happen.
Anything further? Okay. Moving on, consent calendar. Item 6, all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the Planning Commission to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time of the Planning Commission votes on the action unless the Planning Commission requests specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered in the order listed on the agenda. We have two items, item A and item B. Item A is 417 Riverview Avenue, and item B is 203 Fanmar Way. Anybody?
I have to recuse myself from both due to proximity.
I have to recuse myself on one. How do you want me to do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Okay, so, item A, 417 Riverview Avenue.
Yes.
I'm okay on that one.
Okay,
I make a motion for approval for that project, and I would like to compliment the owners. It's really nice to see someone rehabilitate one of the existing structures down there and not try and make it into a three-story building. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll second that. I'd also like to compliment, like to compliment the owners as well as city staff for guiding the owners into preserving the building as much as possible while upgrading its components to make it more, it'll stand for a much longer time.
we need a roll call?
Commissioner Esty,
Aye.
Commissioner Westman,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilk, recused, Vice Chair Jensen,
Yes.
and Chair Christensen.
Okay, separate item. Item B, 203 Fanmar. You have to recuse?
I'm recusing myself.
Okay, so,
Me as well.
So I'll make a motion to approve 203 Fanmar Way.
I'll second.
first and a second, we need roll call?
Commissioner Esty,
Used.
Commissioner Westman,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilk,
Recused.
Vice Chair Jensen.
Aye.
And Chair Christensen.
Approved? Okay, moving on to item 7, public hearings. Public hearings are intended to provide an opportunity for the public discussion of each listed item as a public hearing. The following procedure is as follows. First, staff presentation. Second, planning commission questions. Third, public comment. Fourth, planning commission deliberation. And 5, decision. Item A is 1400 Wharf Road, Capitola Wharf.
Okay,
Um,
thank-
I was going to be recusing myself from that item, and I'd like to read a comment into the record regarding that issue.
Okay, I have to recuse myself as well, so I should be.
You need to draw straws. We need to draw straws for someone to serve as the chair, since our chair and vice chair are recusing themselves.
So we'll need to go grab the straws, but I think we could.
Motion. We can do
I think I don't know. Yeah, so we'll draw straws, but I think Commissioner Jensen, if you'd like, I think we could do that after they've recused themselves.
All right.
No, go ahead, you had a statement.
Yeah, so just, I like to quickly just read this and then I'll leave a copy of the city card. I've been advised by the city attorney to recuse myself from the item due to my voluntary role in a leader of the Capitola Wharf Enhancement Committee. While I comply with this recusal, I express my disagreement in this decision for the record. It is a well-established practice that our city leaders both elected and appointed, and to actively participate and lead volunteer efforts that benefit our community. Regrettably, the decision to enforce a recusal in the instance sets a concerning precedent that may deter future civic engagement and leadership of community projects where there's no financial or fiscal interest involved. I urge the city to reconsider their stance and advocate for more transparent and consistent approach in evaluating potential conflicts of interest. This current position contradicts previous allowances and participation and poses a risk in the spirit of volunteerism in the community leadership, and that is vital to our city's progress. Consequently, to ensure continuity and clarity, I request the city publish its recusal analysis and advisory notice. As an advisory notice, this notice should be made available to any current serving individual or prospectively seeking to serve any decision-making capacity to govern for the Political Reform Act. It should include all marketing materials such as city websites and applications for service, and specifically provided as a notice for those currently serving or who may be fully aware, who might not be fully aware of the implication of this analysis. I am providing a statement for the clerk to be included in the minutes for this evening.
Okay, I just, before we pull straws, I just want to clarify that under, just in case anyone in the audience is not clear of how consent calendar works, if your item was either 417 Riverview Avenue or 203 Fanmar, those were both approved under the consent agenda. And, but now we're going to move on to the regular agenda. So just to be clear. Okay. So the rule of necessity for the this applies to the March 7th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, public hearing item 7A. State law prohibits public officials from acting on matters in which they have certain economic interest. 2 planning commissioners have disclosed disqualifying conflicts of interest in decisions related to public hearing item 7A. Without these conflicted members, oh, I'm sorry. Well, there's a quorum tonight. So tonight, I don't think I need to read through all of this to appoint the chair. I apologize.
Can I just nominate a chair? I nominate Susan Westman as chair. Maybe get a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We vote on that.
Easier. If we don't need to do it, let's.
You know, is that fine? I think we should poll only because the chair votes last.
We
That
can
okay?
pull.
Okay.
Fine with me.
So- I think it's Peter.
That looked awfully long. Shoot. I don't even have an agenda. Did you have a?
Here, I have one right here.
All right.
So I'm going to start by showing the animation that was provided by Fuse Architecture, who's been working on this project. No sound. Well,
So can I ask one quick question? So Fuse Architects was hired by the city to do this.
correct. Yep.
Thank you.
This worked on my computer upstairs, but let's see, maybe it's, here we go. So the project before you tonight is for the Capitola Wharf and all of the extra enhancements that will be included. And Fuse Architecture was hired by the city to put this package together of all the final details and how they'll work together. And so they did some imagery, including both options for the donor panel walls, locations. They also show what it looks like at night with the lighting plan that they've proposed and how the gate functions in terms of currently the it's pretty difficult to take off when we need to take off the archway, but this will just function and easily open up, so. So this is showing the second option for the panels with one on either side arch. And then the panel set facing Cooper's Beach. So I just wanted to show that before we go into the presentation. I think that's a good plan. We'll go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to start off with the staff recommendation as I'm changing it this evening from what was published in the staff report. When I started the review of the project, there was a recommendation by the city council for this to come back to planning commission. What I provided in the packet, I think was a bit incomplete in that there are quite a number of items that I did not include within the packet. And I think that it requires, we want to bring the whole package back to planning commission. What was in the packet is really the overall items that we had Fuse Architecture work on, but there are other parts of the packet that, or the improvements that were not in that first packet. Another error, there was one error in the staff report regarding the benches. They are not the same exact benches that are seen throughout Capitola. This is a different bench. It looks similar to the benches throughout Capitola. It's much lighter, and it is actually affixed to the, would be affixed to the wharf. So just a couple points of clarification. I've modified the staff recommendation, and tonight I am looking for approval on the viewing stations, light post, benches, tables, and trash receptacles, as we'd like to order those items in order to keep on schedule. But for tonight, I'm also asking that we continue the item to a date certain, and we'll discuss that at the end of this item to identify a date. But to first get direction on a few items that were raised in the staff report, and then we can go back to the drawing board, clean up the items so we're all on the same page of exactly what's being approved by Planning Commission, and bring it back to you in 2 weeks for all of the items to be in one place so that there's no question of what is included or is not included in the future of the wharf at this point. So with that, we'll move on, but just wanted to highlight that. So a little history here. Back in 2020, the original Planning Commission approval of the wharf itself was approved by Planning Commission, and with the request that staff bring back the, for review, the pilings, the security gate, bathroom, and bathrooms. In January 5th, 2023, major storm damage occurred on the wharf, and on May 4th, Planning Commission reviewed outstanding items. Those outstanding items were reviewed by Planning Commission, and there was direction that the city council and staff look at the changes to the bathroom as well. And then on December 14th, 2023, city council reviewed the package for the wharf enhancements. They directed staff to take the final design back to the planning commission. And then later when the bathroom that was ordered came in, we also committed to bringing back the bathroom for final discussion on the exterior. So I'm going to go into a lot of detail here. So the first item is the artwork. The Sean Monahan of Bronze Work Fine Arts was selected to create 40 bronze art pieces that will be inlaid into the wharf deck and create a meandering pathway to 4 viewing areas. Next slide, please. Also, Catherine Cressetti is a local artist who produces mosaic tile panels. There's been, I think, 2 public outreach meetings at this point, and a third one is scheduled coming up soon. And these 3 images here are kind of just some of the ideas that have come out of the preliminary meetings. Catherine's been contracted to create 6 panels for the entry gate. And during those initial meetings, I think the idea now is to have kelp along the pillars and then incorporate the shorebirds along the donor wall panels. So
she's going to do 4 or 6 panels?
At this point, I think they're still working through the final details due to the number of donors. And it varies between 4 to 7 panels for the donor wall and 6 panels on the entryway, because 3 sides of the columns will have panels. So here's an image of the entrance gateway, which I'm going to go into the details of that now. This is just showing the height. So that's a human at 6 feet tall to the left. The top of the artwork is proposed right about at 6 feet, 8 foot to the top of the column, and then 10 foot at the very top of the post. And then I don't have the measurement for the very top of the arc, but I would estimate about 14 to 15 feet. Next slide, please. The materials that are proposed for the Capitola Wharf Archway is a bronze zinc or a type of steel. And right now we're working on the budget for these items. So the coloring will be the same, but depending on the pricing, what metal will be utilized. So in here, you're seeing the bronze zinc and well, I'll focus on the column. There's the artwork is proposed to be 18 inches wide by 6 feet tall, and then there's a perforated metal recessed or perforated metal above it with the dragon image in it and the year 2024. And then on the left side, there's another dragon proposed that says the 28, or I'm sorry, I think it's 1981, the last time that there was major funding for the wharf, so 1980. Next slide, please. This is showing an image of the illumination that's proposed with the wharf for the artwork. So within the entryway, the mosaic tiles of kelp will be, there's a down-directed lighting that comes from the top of the column down, and then also there's lighting proposed within the donor panels. Next slide, please. So next I'll go into the recognition panels. So at this point, I don't think there's a definite number of panels identified. I think it's going to vary between 4 and 7. Fuse did a great job of showing where the location of these panels will be. They showed within their rendering some artwork on those. Artwork will be finalized through the public process that's currently going on with the artist, but definitely on the donor panels will be the donor names and mosaic tile art. There's an idea of having fish, different size fish with the donor names on them, but I don't think that's still a work in progress. So, and that will be going to the Art and Cultural Commission for final review. The donor panels are proposed. So we're actually, for tonight, for the Planning Commission purposes, it's really to approve the canvas in which the art could go on. And the canvas is proposed at 4 feet tall by 3 feet wide and 4-inch spacing. That's how it's shown in these renderings. Think there needs to be a little bit of flexibility there because they're really trying to make this fit within the number of donors that have donated and the artwork. So, but location is something we're also seeking guidance on this evening.
Is that picture to scale, so only 4 fit on one side?
For that size panel, 4 would fit on one side, and then there's the city recognition panels across the other side. The donor panels are funded through the CWEP program. And, but like I said, there could be up to 7. So we'd have to figure out how they would fit correctly. If there's 7.
more than one location being considered for them.
So this is the information that it could be between 4 and 7 is new information that I learned in the past 2 days. So we could have the panels we could continue the discussion on the panels until we know how many. But at this point, in general, it'd be nice to get feedback from the planning commission of whether or not you'd like them in the entryway or on the wharf itself. That would be helpful. So 2 city recognition panels for sure. One of them will be from the 1980s when the wharf is rebuilt and we're required to keep that on site. And then the new recognition panel tied to the current wharf update. Next slide, please. And this is just showing the recognition panels on the right, a better, more clear view. Next slide. And then the option 2 for the donor panels to be once you walk on the wharf overlooking Hooper's Beach, it's where the area in which the wharf is widened. Next slide, please. So next I'm going to go into the entry signs and the wharf to wharf monument. So this is at the corner of Cliff Drive and Wharf Road. And the idea here is to redo the landscaping in this area and have a new sign for the Capitola Wharf. We also, one item that we need to update into the plan set is 2 palm trees will be planted in this area to replace, there were 2 trees that were removed previously, and then the stop sign will have to be relocated. Slide. This is an image of the proposed entry sign. And they're proposing to reutilize the wood from the wharf as well as put a bronze sign on top of it, which would they'd install stainless steel letters utilizing the same font that's on the wharf archway. So it would give it relief of between the wood, the bronze, and then the lettering. Next slide. And this is just showing an image of what that would look like. This is showing across the way right now the wharf to wharf, the end of the race. There's a monument there on the ground, and the idea is to lift this out of the ground so people see it. And it would utilize similar materials to what's going on across the street with reutilized wood from the wharf as well as a bronze wrapping. And next slide. So within the entry sign and wharf to wharf monument, we're looking for feedback from the Planning Commission of whether or not you'd like the sign as it's proposed today, or would you like to, the second option would be to utilize the repurposed wharf plank wood base and the stainless steel letters, but remove the bronze treated metal background, or repurpose the wood base and attach a bronze panel that would have laser cut letters that with backlighting, so it would be internally illuminated. And then the fourth is to go with just cement formations that similar to what you see at the Capitola Library. And then here's an image of the bathroom, which was delivered, and that picture is from the wharf currently. Tonight, we're looking for direction on bathroom finishes of whether or not we should do some vertical wood planks to finish the bathroom or paint. And then the suggested colors from Fuse are shown at the top. And the wood product that we would use would fade naturally, so it would blend in with the wharf. Next slide, please. So the 5 items that I mentioned earlier that we are seeking approval tonight on are the viewing stations, the light posts and poles, the benches, the tables, and the trash receptacles, and I have a slide on each of those. So first is the lighting. There's 10 light poles proposed, and there's 10 out there currently, so they would be in the same location as the lights are now, but the posts right now are attached to the railings, and so they would step out a little bit onto the wharf because they've got a base. The manufacturer's name is Lumka, and it's the Urban Cozy Lighting. These images, they're actually both the same type of lighting. I re-verified this afternoon. So the image on the left is the image that was put in the packet through Fuse. It has a dark gray color. The image to the right is the previously proposed lighting. It is the same manufacturer, it's just different colors. It's a blue lampshade with a white post. In talking with representatives from CWEP, the colors of the blue and white was something that the manufacturer provided for the rendering. My understanding is that there's no real set color at this point, and it's really, we'd like the planning commission this evening to provide direction on the color of the lights. If we can go to the next slide. On this slide, these are the color options for the lamps, for the lights. And what you're seeing with the stars are the recommended colors from the architectural firm Fuse. But the planning commission could choose any color that you'd like. So their recommendation was the dark gray. Here's an image of the viewing stations. 4 viewing stations are proposed. Each will have 2 heads. So one at ADA level, so a person in a wheelchair could look out and use the viewing station, as well as somebody standing. There'll be a dedication plaque on each of these, so that the fundraising that went along with them. And one of the viewing stations will have a monochrome lens for a colorblind person. The next is the benches, and I need to double check my number on this. I thought it was 40 benches, so I'm gonna double check that number. I think it's supposed to be 40. But I've listed here the manufacturer and the style of bench, and this is what I was clarifying in this staff report. I had said that they're the same benches that you see throughout the village. They are not the same bench. They will be affixed to the wharf, but can be removed if necessary. And they're much lighter. This is the table. And also with these images showing a green base, they'll be a galvanized steel frame. They'll last longer than the paint. So the color is not true in terms of the base. We'd go with a galvanized steel frame. Next slide. This is the trash can design. And again, the color is not true. It'd be a galvanized steel frame in order for longevity. Next slide. So future items to be incorporated into the plans. There's a fish cleaning station, water filling station, a foot wash, and bike racks. So those are things that I would bring back within the package for the meeting in 2 weeks. So tonight, my recommendation is to approve the viewing station, light posts with the color chosen, benches, tables, and trash receptacles, and then to provide direction on the entry archway, dedication panel placement, signs, and the bathroom finish, and then continue the wharf design enhancement to a date certain. The 2 dates that I was thinking would be 2 weeks out on either March 20th or 21st. And I do think there was a conflict on the 20th for one planning commissioner that I heard of. So I think the 21st, if the 3 of you are available. So that concludes my presentation. We have Fuse here, who is also going to come up and say a few words, and then representatives from CWEP as well.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Let's take these one at a time. Let's just start with item 1. Just talk about the things we're asked to approve and not go into some of the other things. We'll do that next. So are there any questions of staff on the viewing stations, light posts, benches, tables, or trash receptacles?
You know, I want to wait and hear from Fuse Architect and the group that raised the money to purchase these before I have any questions.
Okay. I have a question or two before we get into that presentation. So the lighting is down lighting, right? We don't have to worry about dark skies or anything like that.
It's dark sky compliant.
Very good.
If you go
The
back,
luminaires can be adjusted.
so on that question, if you go back to the slide that gives the parameters of the lights, are they 60-watt LEDs? Is that what that implies? Or that means 60 or 120 volts it can run at. I mean, how bright are these things? And I assume they have to be LEDs by code, right?
Yes.
There you are. See the LIO-60/120? Does anybody know if those are 60 watt or 600 watt or how bright these things are?
My understanding is that you
Please,
can.
please use lumens.
My understanding is that they can be adjusted to, so we,
0, can we turn them off at night? I mean, we're destroying the earth with, unused lighting, and we got 10 of them on our wharf. I don't think it's a good indication to the youth of the community that we're wasting, precious air. It's my personal comment, but we should minimize the power that these things use, my opinion.
We're still on questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any other specific questions like that. So, okay, let's go ahead and go reach out to the public and start with the Fuse Architects. If you have a comments or presentation.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Dan Townsend. I'm with Fuse Architects. My business partner, Dan Gilman, is back here. We're the design team for the Capitola Wharf. And first off, we just are grateful to have the opportunity to work on the wharf. I've been coming to the wharf since I was 3, I think. So this is more than just a design project. For us, we spent quite a bit of time when we were awarded the contract in studying the wharf, the history of it, where it came from, the design behind the arch, the columns, the whole thing. And we met with city staff, we met with CWEP members, and got a lot of feedback from the community events that have been happening. So our proposal is hopefully is a reflection of all of that research that we have done. And we feel like the proposal is fits within the parameters of what we've heard and gained feedback for. There's a lot of details in it is an arch. It's when we studied the previous arch, there were some things in it that we took away, and we said we must keep these things. And those things were the fact that it was an arch, the text, the font. We liked the font. We also liked the detail, the ornamentation that's on top of it. And we also like the meaning behind it, the 2 dragons and the pot and what that means for the community, the symbolism behind it. So we've kept all of those things. The size of the columns is slightly different. We felt like that was a good move and an improvement. That's our whole goal with this design process, is to get feedback from all of the parties involved and try to make it better than it was. And we think the artwork, the mosaic, is a huge improvement to the message that the Capitola Wharf sends and the entryway. We also took some time, as you noticed, to come up with an arch design that swings. So as Katie mentioned, it doesn't have to be removed for emergencies. The gate that we show sliding with the Capitola seal on it, our understanding is that is open 99% of the time. So that's why there's very little detail in it, because it just won't be closed, only for emergency purposes. But again, we're very honored to be a part of this, and we're here to answer any questions and provide any other additional information you might have.
Thank you. All right. So my attempt to just talk about benches and lighting doesn't seem like it's going to work. So does anybody want to open this up to both items?
okay, yeah. Yeah, so the
Right.
Capitola Wharf Enhancement Project, I think we've got a representative, Gail Ortiz.
Ask Fuse questions now or later?
I think let's go, they both had presentations to provide, and then I think we can go into questions after.
Good evening, staff. Good evening, commissioners. I'm wondering if it might be best for me to address my concerns or our concerns, our thoughts about the things that you want to vote on tonight and wait until the next meeting and address those at that meeting? Or would you rather we address all of our comments about the whole design tonight?
I personally would like to talk about just the 5 items that we have to vote on. However, I suspect there's a lot of people who just want to talk about everything. So I'm going to open it up, and with the notion that if the audience can realize that this is going to come back for another discussion, but we do have to decide on those 5 items. If we can focus on that, that would be better, but I'm not going to limit it to just that.
All right, well, then I'll give my whole presentation. I am representing our whole committee. So, and we've been talking with Katie, and I think we've come up with some really good suggestions. She's really moved the needle quite a bit in the last few days, and we appreciate that. So just to be clear, the things that CWEP will be funding on the wharf are the bronze fish scavenger hunt that is on the wharf, the mosaic work at the entry gate pillars and the donor wall, the entry gate art installation only. So the part of the entry gate that actually installs the art, we will be contributing $8,000 for that. All 4 of the sightseeing binoculars, the 10 lighting standards. Just as a side note, it is our general, we voted at CWEP, and the majority would prefer to see muted colors on the wharf. So we would prefer the slate or a color such as that. The majority voted down the blue. So just so you know. The benches, we understand that there are 30 benches, but there may be more or less. We're not sure about that. Tables, there will be 4 ADA compliant tables. Trash receptacles, 10 to 15. The water filling station with the foot wash, fish cleaning station, and half of the bike rack cost, which is about $5,000. The city will be paying for the other $5,000. The things that the city will be contributing through its $250,000 approval on its December 4th, 2023 meeting are the entry gate, this part of the scavenger hunt that is from the foot of the wharf all the way to the bridge, about Stockton Bridge. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more next week. Half the bike rack, the Wharf Road entry sign, and the paver improvements, the installation of the sightseeing binoculars, lighting standards, benches, tables, trash receptacles, a water filling station, and the foot wash. Those are things that the city will be installing for us. Things that we see that have not been funded at this point is what will happen with the bathroom, whether it's reclad or painted. Additional costs for the fused designed elements, whatever that comes in at, the entry gate, the monument sign, and the wharf-to-wharf sign. The wharf-to-wharf monument, I should say. The city-sponsored panels on the left of the entry, which indicate the 2 times that funds have been used, whatever you guys need to do on that, and landscaping. The points that we would like to make are that we have been working off of estimates that amounted to $336,500. We understand that those were several months ago and that costs may go up. There's been a little bit of confusion about the $75,000 that we put aside for the jet ski storage facility. And we said we would put that aside for a year, and those funds would be kept. We are not keeping our funds. The Wharf to Wharf committee is keeping our funds. We don't have access to those funds. So the Wharf to Wharf would keep those funds until we've decided what we want to do with the wharf in the future. If by any chance the things that we are funding now end up being more expensive, we maybe have to use some of the funds because we want to make sure that the things that we've spec'd they're high quality, they'll last a long time, they're best value for the city, and we want to make sure that those get purchased. The entry gate, we recommend that. Could we put up the entry gate mosaics? It's both our opinion and the recommendation from the artist who I spoke with last night that the mosaic work go all the way up to the cap, eliminating the piece of metal that is at the top of the mosaic work. It goes back there a little bit. Maybe there's a larger picture of it so people could see it. Yeah, that looks like a good one. There we go. We're proposing eliminating the part that it has the is it the dragon and the metal on it? I can't see that far. I forgot my other glasses. And having the mosaic go all the way up. And that's something that we feel that the Planning Commission would need to make their judgment on. Also, it is the desire of the artist that the fluted stone on the edges be reduced to 4 inches. I think it's spec'd at 6 inches, and she would prefer that the mosaic work were a little bit wider in order to really portray the kelp forest the way she would like to. The donor wall, we would prefer, and so would the, well, yeah, we would prefer, and so would the artist prefer that the donor wall not be lit wherever it ends up. I think we agree with Commissioner Estes that there's enough lighting in our world. We don't need more. Also, the artist is asking that, well, we would prefer option 1, where all the panels are at the beginning of the wharf instead of option 2. And we're hoping, and she's hoping that they are not spec'd convex, because I don't know of a better way to say this, but when birds sit on top of it and it's convex, you can imagine what might happen. And she would prefer that did not happen to her artwork. And it would also be harder. Well, she doesn't have any substrate that's convex, so she would have to, fabricate something that would definitely add to the cost of that. As far as the number of panels, my discussion with her last night was she thought the panels would be 2 feet wide by 3 feet high. There would be 6 to 7 of them. They would be 4 inches apart, and they would sit about 4 to 6 inches above the railing, which is at 42 inches. So that people don't have to get on their knees to see their name. Let me see, I'm gonna make sure we've got everything in on this. Good. The viewing area, so viewing areas, since there is not, I'm not sure whether the next meeting is gonna have a schematic of the whole wharf. Do you know?
I think we can provide that. So
I think it would.
viewing areas just in general where they would be.
So we've been talking about the scavenger hunt fish on the deck would start at the foot of the wharf. They would meander over to the right a ways, and there would be the binoculars, a table, a bench, and a trash can. And then they would veer off and they would go over to the left, or it could go left and right, or, and then, but they would meander down the wharf. There would be 4 stations, and there would be those 4 elements at each station. So, and then one at the head of the wharf. And we hope that the commissioners would agree with us that it's a nice destination. It's combining elements so that we don't have elements scattered all over the wharf. And there's some respite and free areas where people just get a chance to see the ocean and the beach, which is what they're there for. The sightseeing binoculars, the one thing we want to double, triple make sure is that when they're fabricated, the donor plaque stand gets fitted into it. You can add on to that, and we want to make sure, because if it doesn't happen, putting it on later is not going to look good and it's going to cost us more. So we want to double check and make sure that happens. And CWEP will provide the actual plaques. If the sightseeing binocular manufacturer does not provide the donor plaque, we would pay for that. We've heard from a lot of people wondering if the benches are going to be in the same spot, and it sounds like they're going to be down the wharf looking out. And we wondered what's going to happen with the plaques that are currently on the benches that are somewhere, probably at the courtyard or wherever they are. And we're just speaking for the community, wondering about that. And maybe we could address that tonight or the next couple weeks. The lighting standards are same concern with the binoculars, to make sure that when they're fabricated, a manufacturer has the ability to put a plaque holder on that, and we want to make sure that happens at the time of fabrication. The bronze fish, I think we can talk about that next week. That's really an Art and Cultural Commission item. The bathroom, even though we're not funding the bathroom, we just had to put in our 2 cents and say that we would really hope that the Planning Commission clads it instead of paints it. The water filling station and the foot wash, we're hoping that that will be on the schematic for the next couple of weeks. We can see where that is. And we're wanting to make sure that the city understands that we need to see, CWEP will need to see the invoices or the bids for all CWEP funded things before they are paid. or, before they may be paid by the city and then we would reimburse the city. But we would need to make sure we feel a strong fiduciary responsibility to our huge amounts of donors. And we want to make sure that the funds are spent in the way that we told them they would be spent. And then finally, we want to find out if this is approved, if these things are approved tonight, and there's additional costs, what will happen? And after tonight's approval, if there are any changes to the design or selections, what will happen? And if there are any changes to the selection for these 4 components tonight, we definitely want, CWEP would like to know about them before their bid or before their bid, because it would save the city a lot of time. Jerry Jensen and Joe Palandrani, I'm not sure he's here tonight, but those 2 are the ones that worked on the current pricing and bidding, and really the city needs to work with them on the specifics. I know Jerry had some, you got the, so there were several corrections that he made to your things. So I would hope that the commission tonight instructs staff to go ahead and make these, to work with CWEP to start that process right away and not spell out any particular actual objects, because they are not right in the staff report. We're not there yet. We're not quite there yet. And we need to make sure that they're what we spec'd out to begin with. Does that feel okay to you, Katie?
Yeah, so I received the update from Jerry in enough time, and I put the updated specs in those slides.
Thank you.
So they are represented tonight of the correct
Great.
slides, but I will double, triple check to make sure that we get the list correct. So,
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions from CWEP?
I think if you're going to be around, I'd like to go ahead and get all public comment and then go back with questions.
I'm here. Thank you.
There are other members of the public who would wish to address this topic.
Good evening, Karen Hanna. While I am a member of the CWEP committee, I have some comments, just my personal opinions, which may or may not differ from CWEP. It's okay if we don't just address the items?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And if you could put your name on the
Okay.
list so we have your spelling of your name.
Yeah, I
properly.
think, yeah, he knows.
We're gonna limit this to, now that we have normal public comments, if we can limit this to 3 minutes.
Yeah. So on the light poles, so that is on item 1, one of the pictures shows the poles that could accommodate banners. And while there hasn't actually been discussion about it, that I see in the report about the possibility of there being those poles to support banners. So my personal opinion is no banner poles. That banners are an issue that are very hard to manage. They're expensive. They get stolen. They get blown away. And to have the poles there and not use them just seems unnecessary. So they aren't really specified, but I know that it's kind of been addressed, and then it was in one of the photographs. And if the contractor's buying them and he sees a photograph of the banner poles, they might order those. And anyway, I'll probably speak to some of the other issues at the next hearing, but on the location of the panels, I agree with everything on lighting. It should be absolutely minimal. The people that spoke at the meeting said that they wanted to see the wharf as utilitarian as possible, and any lighting, if there is lighting that's illuminating any artwork, it should be minimal, and it should be able to be turned off at like 9:30 or some reasonable evening, because the people who live around and look down at the wharf don't want to see a bunch of lights, and it makes it a more of an attractive nuisance. So that's my opinion, that they should be minimal. As far as the location of the panels, would it be possible to approve the shape? And then as the design and as the design of the wharf continues, because if you look at that picture, and I think that Fuse did an awesome job in showing the graphics so that we could really get an idea, but it's very narrow at the beginning and then it widens. And it, perhaps if, especially if we're looking at 7 panels, people are going to be wanting to move from one to the other. And it could be that a much better placement might be more like option 2 down the wharf a little bit. So hopefully perhaps the actual decision of the precise placement could wait a little bit. And then maybe mock-ups could show whether they're blocking any view. Restroom definitely clad, because Venetian Court people, they've been telling us that that they wanted to see it clad. And I think that my time is almost up. The recognition panels, maybe they don't need artwork, especially if they're not all together. It might be a little more confusing. They'll be a little more utilitarian, like the city, and I'll keep everything else to the next time. Thank you very much.
Chair Welk, I would like to, I hate to interrupt the public comment, but I would like to emphasize that getting all the comments tonight would be preferable, because we really want to come back with a design that addresses everything. I would hate to hear new items brought up at the next hearing where we're really trying to listen tonight, hear everyone's ideas, and come back with something that really reflects what we heard. So if we could, tonight I'm looking for action on 5 items, but otherwise I think hearing feedback on any design concerns related to the wharf, I'd like to open up
I'll
those
open it up to
discussion.
everything.
Okay, I just want to make that clear, because the last speaker referenced adding additional comments to the next hearing. And if there's more,
Oh,
yes, so I just want to be clear that we'd like to hear all thoughts on the current design if possible.
so then my dilemma has been, trying to get everything all at once, and then suddenly we have 3-minute limits.
Can I just throw in, it'll take 1 second. Not
ahead.
crazy about the logo on the gate, the sliding. I think it might look better, just cleaner, and everybody knows it's Capitola. So that was my only other comment.
Okay. Are there other public comments? And we won't limit it to the 5 items.
This was the first time I've had the pleasure of speaking before the Planning Commission. My name is Lori Hill, and yes, I participated as a part of the CWEP efforts, but I'm standing here as an individual commenting on the entry to the wharf. Fuse did a dynamite job. I can't speak any louder about that. It is the best rendering of anything that we've seen come forward with regards to the entry there. One could quibble on, little elements of the design, and I'm sure that that'll all work itself out. But the functionality of it is brilliant. The gate is clean. I too would prefer not having the city logo on the gate. It says Capitola Wharf over the top. You know where you are. So I like the gate features. I love the mosaic inlay. It is just, it's beautiful. And if for some reason we need to remove the dragons from the top of the pillars, maybe they could be up in the archway somewhere, because they do reflect the Venetians. They reflect what was already on the wharf when we had to tear the pillars down. I like the messaging of the dragons. There was a lot of comments during the CWEP process with regards to tradition. And for me, tradition, when we looked at what was brought to us as examples by the design consultants initially, they brought us material from Southern California that was Art Deco, it was glitzy, it was pastel colors, and the community said, no, stop. But for me, that doesn't necessarily mean we need the kind of concrete pillars that we had before. So thank you, CWEP, for a wonderful design. And the restrooms, please correct the baby blue, the periwinkle. And my preference would be the cladding as well. that shouldn't be the first thing that you see on the wharf. It just should be a part of an important element that we're grateful has been added. And I'm confident that our mosaic artist will artfully address those beautiful opportunities to the right that my understanding is that wing wall with those panels needs to be there because it's sort of it's hiding some things that we don't want to see. And I think that having the panels as designed by Fuse was brilliant. And I'm counting on our mosaic artist to handle the donor/art element with the same elegance that I've seen in her other designs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We will then close public comment and
Chair Will, if I could clarify a few items,
please.
because I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So I took some notes. One point of clarification is, so the bronze art that will be inlaid on the wharf will be inlaid on the wharf. There was a discussion on providing the same bronze artwork to be inlaid from the corner of Cliff Drive coming up wharf to the wharf. And at this point, the city, we cannot move forward with that because it would be in the sidewalks and we don't have the funding to update all of our sidewalks at this time. So I think it's a great idea, but that won't be included. And I just want to make sure that's, and I spoke with Gail earlier in the day and let her know, and that's what she was referencing of, and one more update. The other is the pavers right at the entryway of the wharf. It also doesn't make sense to include those at this point because the street itself is in really bad condition, and that's something that would come at a later date when the street is actually repaved, and it's also not within the scope of the wharf update. So just two items that I want to be clear that those won't be moving forward. Just confirming, yes, the benches will face outward. They will be oriented as they were previously, but unable to move. The plaques along the wharf and the plaques in the benches, we have fantastic documentation on those. So we are going to be bringing back those plaques throughout the wharf and trying to get them in the exact same locations. In the one area that the wharf used to meander a little bit differently, and now it's wider, we're going to have to, those will have to be in a different location, but the plaques will be coming back. Before the big storm, we had inventoried every plaque and taken pictures. So we're feeling really good about that. In terms of the banners on the light poles, I spoke with Commissioner Jensen earlier, and that model that they've chosen, they can actually come off. So at this point, it would be if the Planning Commission is supportive of having banners on the poles in the future, we can order them so that the banners will have the poles, but they won't be utilized until we have like a banner policy in place and how those would be utilized in the future. So it's an option to those poles. It was recommended by CWEP to include the banner poles. But if the Planning Commission is not in favor of those, we can order the same exact light posts without the banner poles. And lastly, in terms of just billing and transparency, we'll be working closely with CWEP and making sure that occurs so that within I think we've got a contract and we'll make sure the language is clear and working through that. Typically, when items come before the Planning Commission, we really don't focus on funding and money. So I would like to keep that separate, and I'll be discussing that with just how we go, just following the contract that's in place. And I know there are some parameters for signing off. So we'll continue to work together and be transparent in these next steps. And I just wanted to bring that up, but I don't think that's the purview of the Planning Commission tonight. So with that, I think that answers the questions that came up during public comment.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on to commission deliberations. Now we can ask questions and discuss.
I'll start with the picture of the entry and all the chosen metals and colors and all that stuff, including the dragons. So the original one that we're replacing. One slide. That's probably good enough. It doesn't show the material selection, but in the original one that we're replacing, the dragons are actually on the ark or they're somewhere else? Anybody know? They were on this, so you moved them off the ark to the top of the columns. Okay. And then the choice of colors and metals is a silly question, but you have dissimilar metals there. I don't know about electrochemistry between bronze and steel, but you wouldn't want to create a rusting situation right off the bat because of the salty air that we're in. And then I don't know how you pick. Can you like describe how you picked those different metals and colors and things like that?
The other Dan Gomez, Fuse Architects. Yeah, so it was kind of given options. It was presenting either as a bronze option or as a coated steel, stainless steel option. So that was the alternative, whether it be, the idea is that the finish, the same color tones, but there was definitely some options there. Those dragons are currently on the columns. And I'm curious if anybody knows what those dragons mean, what they stand for. They're actually sharing a pot with a fire in the center of a pot. And it means peace, prosperity, and community. So we thought it was super cool to carry that over. Kind of fitting for Capitola, so we were really liking it.
So in the current, the current design, I guess it's still standing, those dragons are on the columns, not on the arch.
Correct. And the fire that we would hope to get the art of the fire would be under the center of the arch, right at the bottom. It's that little middle section that drops down.
Got it.
And
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Is that it?
Yeah, I guess that's it for what your design. Yeah, thanks.
So do we all want to talk about the arch, or do we want to, how do we want
Well,
to do this?
Well, I was going to give Paul the floor to ask all those questions and have his discussions about primarily, let us just focus on the 5, shall we think? And then we can go back? No, it's not. That's not working. We're going to just discuss everything, get all your thoughts, all your notes out here.
I like your idea of the 5. That's one of the actions, right? And then we can go
Well,
back.
that's the actions we have, but there's
Go
there are
back.
comments and questions on everything. So there's 2 ways to do it. That we could just focus on one and go back, or it's very difficult to get people to limit their comments to once they get started. Like you jumped right on the arch, and that's not one of the 5.
I know.
So it would just go for it. Just let's get all your comments in, and then we'll move on to Susan.
Okay, so I guess this where the viewing stations are and the fish walk, I'll call it, that will be presented next time. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. One thing about the meandering is we're definitely going to be doing a lot of public outreach about the future uses along the wharf. So we want to be careful about where we choose at this point.
I know where I was going too, is we have to consider what we might possibly do in the future, although I'm sure these viewing stations get moved, but the fish probably can't be as easily removed because they're inlaid, I presume. They're not sitting on top of the planks.
They're inlaid.
Yeah. Does it, the 2 dates, what is it? 20 or 8?
1981.
1981 and 2024. Does anybody know what they mean if you don't put a legend there? I mean, if I'm a tourist and I see those 2 dates, I'm going to go, okay, I got to go Google like what they mean.
To the left will be 2 panels for the city dedications. One of the city dedication panels is from 1981, the last time major funding was for the wharf. So that it's
Okay.
there.
I'll figure it
but-
out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, you already heard my rant about the lights. But I haven't, I'm anti-lights on anything except the ones that we're actually installing. There's no need to light up the donation panels or the city panels like, who cares at night? This is a wharf that's used primarily in the daytime. Do, the introductory sign, which is today about this big, sorry, that's probably about 3, 4 feet wide, is now going out to, it's hard to tell, the scale's not on it, but it looks fairly massive to me. Yeah, that thing there. And I've been told that the purpose of that is to identify where the heck the wharf is. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this wharf is 866 feet long. I think the average person could figure out where it is pretty quickly. So do we really need to have such a big thing at that location, or even in the little pillar thing that moves the wharf to wharf plaque up? I don't understand that design, but we can talk about that. Okay, I'm done with all my ranting and raving.
Well, we can come back when you've got some more.
Okay, well, I'll start with the arch since we're going to talk about that first. I do agree. I would get rid of the City of Capitola logo on the gate. I think it's a different design, different font. It doesn't, feels to me like it was just put on there. It says Capitola Wharf. Everybody knows it's the City of Capitola Wharf. I don't think you need to have that additional signage there. I like the overall design of it. I assume that there is going to be, needs to be some flexibility because they haven't bid having this arch built yet. So, and I think costs are going to dictate what the materials are going to be to make all of that work. I'm not so enamored with the dragons. I think that they could be incorporated somewhere else. We're going to do artwork out there. It would be nice for me to see the artwork be able to go all the way to the top of those caps, again, for lack of a better term. And, if the artist feels that the sides should be 4 inches, not 6 inches, that would be fine with me too. I think that we're hiring an artist to do this work, and while there's some limitations on how big it can actually be, giving her a little flexibility is not a bad thing. And at this point, I don't think we even know what the exact artwork is going to be on there. I think that's something that we'll end up talking about when it comes back to us at our next meeting, or whatever the Arts and Cultural Commission decides to do. I agree about the lights. I don't think there's any necessity to have, lights on there at night. On the donor panels, I assume, again, that's an item that we're going to talk about later, because we don't really even know how many donor panels there are going to be. So I don't think we're in a position to pick the location that they're going to be located at tonight. Sounds like that's something we're going to have to wait for. I agree with you about the entry sign, the Capitola. It does seem awfully massive and large to me for being a directional sign. I don't mind something going up there. That area is the one where we took out the 2 pine trees, and we agreed we would put back trees there. And so maybe something a little smaller that would fit in and work with the trees would be better. You talked about the lights. For me, I think the light poles ought to be sort of inconspicuous and fit into the view. So I would go with the dark gray color, not have them be a fixture that's going to stand out being white and blue. And I would like to see them without the sort of banner pole extensions on them. I think that's simply going to create a place for seagulls to sit and do what they do all over the wharf. I would rather see them, shorter, not the entire banner.
Can I ask a question on that? So what I understood is that you can order them and then just have that option. So I assume like they thread out or something, and you can have the poles. But if ever there was an event where you wanted banners, you'd have that option where you could thread in the little pole, and all of a sudden you've got a banner option.
Right. The way I understand it is you don't have to do it with your initial order. That's something that can be added later. that the city's looking at doing a banner policy that's going to include, you know, the entire city, not just the wharf. And we wouldn't want to spend the money to buy them if the banner policy is not going to allow them. So it seems to me we could start out with the shorter pole and then, you know, add the longer one if there is a decision to have banners out there. And, you know, for me personally, you know, Karen spoke about it and she's been in the village for a number of years. I can't remember how many times they've tried to put banners up down in the village, which has never been successful. They have been stolen, they fall down, so, right now I would like to skip having the banner option until the city has a policy to have.
It's not like we're gonna have a parade on the wharf.
No.
I don't think we need.
I'm just I'm thinking of saving costs. If there was an option where you could just, you buy it and then if ever you did need it, you could, you didn't have to buy a whole new pole. You just put in the,
I think they said that.
I'm not sure what
you'll-
they said.
You'll buy them now with the shorter pole. If you decide to have a longer pole later on, you can order those and add the longer pole. You won't be buying a whole new light.
So, the light fixture, it's just an add-on for the banner pole. So it would be without the banner, there'd be the pole for the lighting and the arm that comes across. If we purchase the option, there's an additional pole that ties into the lighting pole for a banner. So,
is that removable?
and it's removable, but it does cost more. It's an additional option on the lights, but it is removable, so it wouldn't have to be installed.
So it's a question of if it's clear that we're never going to have banners out there, we might as well save a couple bucks and not have that option. But if there's an opportunity that perhaps one day we might want to have banners, we don't have to install that little banner pole. We can just have that as a bucket full of
Yeah.
extensions in the back room somewhere that we one day may want to use.
Yeah, but with the for tonight and hopefully to place an order for the lights, it would be good to have direction on that. But yes, we would need to put together a special banner policy. And there is the issue of seagulls, but
We have
We could
pictures
do-
of that, the pole with could you bring that up? The light pole with where's the banner goes and where how does that work?
And I think we ought to hear from CWEP about this because they're paying they're paying for the light.
Good point. I would like to see it nonetheless if we can.
I mean, the thing with banners is today they're mostly made of plastic, which deteriorates and gets in, and out there, they're gonna get into the ocean. I think it's a really bad idea, personally.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't think CWEP's going to have a problem with omitting the banner part of the light pole. I think there's been good reasons why we don't want to do that.
I comment on the polls for you?
This is the man that knows the most about the poles.
Okay. My name is Joe Palandrani. Those poles have slots on all four sides. If you can imagine, they're going to be kind of a rectangular pole with slots on all four sides. And you could put anything in those slots. The actual donor slide or the donor marking will be an attachment that slides in and screws in place. And if you want banners at any time, you could buy them in any time, slide them in a slot and add them. You don't have to buy them with a pole. And they could fit anywhere in the whole length of the pole. I mean, if city, I think it was Long Beach, has those poles, and they have power supply slots, phones, and everything else. So you can electrify them and do whatever you want. Our goal was to put a basic shaft, an arm, and a light, and then add a little donor plaque mounting that also can be slide up and down. The poles that we ordered are going to have special, the ones that we recommend are going to have a special paint to hold up, to help them hold up in a fog environment, salt fog environment. They're also going to have bird spikes on the arm, so birds can't land there. And our goal is to give you an efficient pole that's going to last a long time. And the light is not going to be seen, it's going to be from the bottom down. So we're not going to light the water up adjacent. The arm's going to keep the light on the actual wharf.
So Joe, you're an electrical engineer. You can answer my question about how many watts and how are they fully dimmable?
They have I think it's rheostat control. You can go to almost off to almost to bright.
The app?
You can get Bluetooth options also. Yeah, which is, our goal is to have a, like a medium setting and try it. If it doesn't work, it's 10 light poles. You turn a knob on 10 poles, it's a ladder. And I'll be glad to go down there 1,000 times and adjust them whenever you want to for free.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay, I think that's most of what I had on my list that we're going to be discussing tonight.
This is the color palette for the lights, and so the ones on top have a smooth finish on the light posts, and the ones on the bottom are more of a rough finish. And this is the steel gray or the steel dark. I think the images were showing the steel dark, but I'm not sure what the preference is. If you could comment on which light color.
Does CWEP have an opinion?
Oh, steel dark.
Like, a bright galvanized pole over time will age to a kind of a dull gray. Well, this starts at a dull gray. And it's just a kind of, we call that an invisible pole.
And in the smooth texture?
It's, yeah,
Yep.
I think that's that.
That's what it says, a smooth finish. Yep.
If it's touched with a dirty hand, that mark's always going to be there. If you have a smooth finish, you can wipe it right off. And also the smooth finish is going to help when we do have salt accumulation, the rain will clean the pool. Or in the summers, maybe an occasional hose, squirt it on, clean the salt.
Thank you.
So you're looking for a consensus on the color of the pole?
Yes.
I would agree with them.
Yeah, I would go with the dark gray. I mean, the architects picked that color. The CWEP people want that.
It's unanimous.
It's an easy one.
Thank you.
It should all be that easy. Okay, I have some comments. Let's start with a monument. Could you bring up the picture of the monument? I'm not even sure why it needs to be there. When I looked at that rendering, I said, "Oh, that's the Capitola Wharf Apartments," and it's not educational. It doesn't say Capitola Wharf this way. It's not in front of the. I think the whole thing is unnecessary. I like the idea of putting the palm trees there, and that should be enough. So those are my 2 bits on the monument. With regards to the donor panels, I'd be curious to know what they're covering up. Lori mentioned that they're covering up some unsightly thing. I got the impression that no, someone had also mentioned that maybe they were blocking views.
Some electrical equipment on the right-hand side as you go down. It's some big gray boxes. I don't know if they're transformers or what they are.
So those boxes will be, right now it's in a wooden box. It's not to code. Those will be brought up to code, but yes, the donor panels along here as proposed would hide those more. And I don't know if Kailash wants to add anything to that, or is that, I believe the electricity panels are going to stay in the same location, but will be in an updated box.
I guess well, do we also know how big the lettering is for the donors?
So the lettering is going to vary. The idea that I've heard is that the fish size will vary based on the donations. And so there'll be 3 different sizes of fish, and it'll be incorporated on the donor wall as art, but that might be, no, is that?
So based on the new gate entry pillars, the things have had to change and the artist has had to figure out new ways. So she's decided to put the kelp, the birds were going to go on the pillars, but now they don't fit on the pillars because of the narrowness of them. So she's switched over and the birds she would like, but this is something that's going to be decided later. But her latest thought is that the birds will go on the donor wall and the donor name plaques will be made out of fused glass, I believe of different colors that will incorporate organic shapes that go into the sand on the bottom. It'll be sort of like a beach scene that goes all the way across. And so some of the larger donors would be in the sky above, maybe in, I would imagine in blue fused glass. And she was talking about organic shapes. But I think if we give her 2 more weeks, she's going to come up with some really good designs. Although I have to say that I don't believe it's the purview of the Planning Commission to pick the design of this. It's the Art and Cultural Commission, but I thought you would want to know where she's headed with that.
The reason I asked is because I was listening to Karen Hanna and talking about maybe moving those donor plaques further down so that it's not so crowded right at the entrance. I thought that was a good comment, and so I was wondering how big they are. Could they be smaller? Do they need to have artwork on them? Should they be moved down? You know, just to acknowledge the donors further down the wharf and open that area up.
Donors have been told that it's going to be on a mosaic wall so that, you know, the donors contributed knowing that. So I think that's a decision that has already been made, but they could go further down. The reason that we didn't recommend them down further is blocking views. Just blocking, you know, more garbage down, you know, get it done with before you get onto the wharf and then go onto the wharf with the, you know, seeing as much as you want.
What about the comments about the curved nature?
Yeah, the curved nature, that she really recommends, hopefully, that we don't go with the curve because she doesn't have a substrate for it. We don't really, it would cost us a lot to create a substrate for that. Also, they could be hit by strollers or bikes even more, you know, they're more vulnerable, I think, so.
Okay, so my comments on the donor panels then are in concurrence with CWC-WEP. With regard to the restroom, I agree with the comments that we should go ahead and try to find the vertical wooden planks. I am concerned, well, I guess we're not going to talk about costs, but obviously you're going to work about getting multiple bids. With regards to the mosaic going to the top or not, I don't have a strong opinion on that. With regards to the lighting, I kind of like the downlit mosaic, but having listened, I think I agree. We don't need, yeah, people use the wharf in the daytime. We don't need any extra lighting. I agree that we should remove the logo. That logo changes over time. That hasn't always been our logo, so I don't think we need it on the front gate. So many notes. So, all right, so now you need specific comments on the viewing stations, the light posts, the benches, the tables, and the trash cans. So the viewing stations, I agree with CWEP's recommendation. I don't think there was any controversy there. I like the idea of the concentrated areas, you know, meandering and having the group of, you know, trash can, table, viewing station, and then move on to the next one. I think that's an excellent idea. I think we talked about the light posts. The style of the benches seem to be consistent with what we've had before, and they'll work well with the plaques. I don't think the tables are lovely, but I think fine. Tables and trash cans, really no comment. So, any other further comments back and forth about the monument or anything else?
Bench height for the.
Viewing, light posts, benches, tables, and trash can.
So those items we have to actually do a motion to approve or what?
Yeah, that would be great if we could do a motion to approve, and the color that I heard was the steel dark and the smooth finish for the lights, and whether or not to order the banner, but it sounded like not to order the banner is what I was hearing.
Well, it sounds like you don't need to because they're
Right.
automatically designed to hold them or not. Any comments about benches or tables or garbage cans?
No.
Yeah, so the only change I'm hearing is the color.
So I'll try a motion.
Please.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve 10 of the light standards to be dark gray without the banner,
Steel gray.
Steel dark.
steel dark. That the benches be consistent with the design that we were shown tonight. And they will be attached to the wharf facing out. And the number is going to be 30.
40.
40 benches is what I saw.
40 benches. I think a certain amount of them are funded through CWEP and the rest are funded through the city. But
Okay.
40
So
total.
there's going to be 40 benches, 30 funded by CWEB and 10 funded by the city. As they put in their thing that they're funding 30 benches. The garbage cans be as shown in the design in a neutral color, not the blue that we saw. And
Many of them are there. 'Cause
and
it's 10 to
in
15
the-
on CWEP, but CWEP funding them all? Or does anybody know?
my understanding that CWEB's going to fund, we have a comment.
I'm gonna pull up the email that I have with the correct quantities and then I can better help with this, but
Furniture is all hot dip galvanized frame. So it's good, all the furniture and the trash cans, all the framing on those are hot dip galvanized. So it's a gray color that's gonna fade to a dark gray. So there's no color at all. There's just ash wood that frames the trash cans, ash wood you sit on the benches and the tables.
Do you have any comment about whether CWEP is funding 10
30.
Uh,
We're
10 of-
buying 30.
30.
trash cans?
10 trash cans, 30 benches,
Okay,
4 tables.
all right, we got 10 trash cans.
Okay.
Okay, and if we need more, we can always go back and ask them to fund more beyond the 10.
yep. I have 10 light posts, 40 benches, not all funded by CWEP, portion by
30
city.
by them and 10 by.
The tables, I've got 4 and then 10 trash receptacles.
Okay, so those are the items we need to deal with tonight.
Yes, thank you.
So that is my,
Viewing stations.
and the
Four-
viewing.
4 viewings.
4 viewing stations, as shown on the plans, that will have a place, they'll install a place for the plaque to go on the viewing station.
And the light posts will also have a place for the.
The light post will also have.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Let's have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Estee,
Aye.
Commissioner Westman,
Aye.
and Commissioner Wilk.
Aye.
And I think we all ought to thank CWEP for all the work they've done of raising all this money to enhance our wharf, which is shown to be a very important part of Capitola.
Here, here.
And if I may I give a summary back of what I heard for design changes to be brought back to Planning Commission? So I heard 2 of the 3 commissioners talk about bringing the mosaic to the top and removing the dragons from their location.
And it would be fine with me if they want to add the dragons in the upper part or do come up with some other way to have them there. I would just like to see the artist have the opportunity
Yeah,
There might be an opportunity in the
it
archway.
seemed like the dragons were important to everybody.
The fluted stone we'll have Fuse look at and see if that can be decreased to 4 inches. No lights on the donor panels. I'm not clear as to lights on the pillars, so.
No lights on
No
the,
lights on.
Lights on the pillars.
Okay. Make sure the benches are facing outward, but that was in the motion. Remove the city logo from the gate. The wharf sign, I'd like more clarity there. I'm hearing the wharf sign should be smaller or don't include that at all in the packet. And I'd also like some clarity on the, I don't think you talked about the wharf to wharf rock.
so, yeah, I would, I would just leave the existing things there and plant trees that we talked, I wasn't here, but you talked about last year or the year before. And I would leave the original plaque, the wharf to wharf plaque on the ground the way it is today, not build a little pillar. I don't see the point in the pillar, but.
And I think for me, we do have some directional signs in town. Something wants to go up somewhere, they can have a sign and say wharf this way. So if the purpose of it is to be a directional sign, we could look at having, a small directional sign somewhere that's appropriate. But I don't think the larger sign saying, Capitola Wharf needs to be there.
So remove it from this project, the 2 signs.
I agree with what Paul said, which is you don't need to do anything. Just leave the wharf to wharf signage as it is. Doesn't need to be a raised pillar. And remove the Capitola Wharf monument altogether. Does kind of look like the Capitola Mall sign
Does
too.
look like
I
it.
agree with Peter. It makes it look like that's the name of the apartment building.
Okay, but plant the 2 trees.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, see, I think that's clear. I've got great direction. Thank you.
Oh, the other one was,
The
in
meandering.
meandering, consider future, I don't know how you're gonna do this, but
So I'll talk with CWEP and the designer about, right, we are starting this process of what is the future of the wharf going to be. And so if we'll have to talk about how to decide on that. I think if ultimately, if there was a site at the very end of the wharf, we might want to hold off on that last location until we've worked through what the use is going to be out there and design, but maybe we'll talk about that and we'll bring back something.
That's something you can talk with them about, and then at our next meeting, we'll have some sort of plan with options on it that we can
Yeah.
consider.
Hey, thank you.
We move on then to, let's bring the other commissioners back in. The direction on the restrooms was to clad them in wood.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody say they didn't want the flat wood.
maybe the birds.
I go.
Okay, what's happening next? Maybe I need to go too.
No, it's only,
Only Peter.
You need to go too.
No.
So Commissioner Wilk and I are recusing ourselves from the next item because we both live. Commissioner Wilk and I are recusing ourselves from the next item because we both live within 500 feet and thus are presumed to have a conflict.
All right, item Are you moving? Are you ready?
The applicant is,
In the bathroom.
just a moment, the applicant.
Okay. Okay. You ready?
We're ready. Okay. So item 7B, 413 Capitola Avenue. This is a new residence project for Planning Commission consideration under a design permit, a coastal development permit, and there's also a parking variance proposed. And internal to the new residence is a junior accessory dwelling unit. This property is located actually right across from City Hall, just under 1,500 square feet, and is in the mixed-use neighborhood zone. So this is the street view of the existing building. This is a cottage slash design studio is probably its most recent use, and the proposal is to demolish that existing building. This is a site plan of the proposal. So this is True North. So up on the page here is True North. The faded orange is the building footprint, and the brown is a deck proposed at the rear. And I'll use the pointer here to point out permeable pavers for the driveway. And then there is a proposed walkway around the north side of the proposed residence. These are a couple of clips out of the title sheet of the plan. So in the upper left, we've got a perspective view of the two-story residence. On the right, we have a representative image of the proposed materials and palette, highlighting a smooth stucco finish on the exterior. And then there are some indigo blue painted wood trim features and several arches, copper downspouts, and a maple stained front door. On the bottom, the applicant provided a streetscape so you can see how the proposed design would fit in with adjacent buildings. Just walking through a tour of the floor plan, I'll use the pointer again. To the right here is covered porch into a front entry hall. The property is in the flood zone. So this is a bit raised, about 2.5 feet or about 30 inches above the existing grade. To the left, you've got a one-car garage that is down on just about the existing grade. So a need for a few risers to get up into this entry foyer. Up the stairs would be the primary living, and then through a door, and then at the other end of the entry hall is the junior ADU access. And then up the stairs on the second floor, a family room, 2-bedroom, kitchen, and then another bit of short stairs for a loft access, and a proposed loft in the rear of the upper story. Bringing back this slide just to talk about setbacks. This area is called out in the zoning ordinance as being a unique stretch of Capitola Avenue from the trestle up just past the Avenue Cafe, in which the Planning Commission can basically determine setbacks as a level of appropriateness with its surroundings for these lots, because they are significantly smaller than average lots within the city. So the setbacks being proposed for the project are
10 feet from face of curb, which is the code standard at the front. And then along the north side, there's a proposal for a 3-foot wide setback to provide a little bit of access to rear yard. At the rear yard, the applicant's strategy was to try to mirror and reciprocate the setback on the other side. So you can see the edge of the building on the other side of the property line, which ranges from about 4 to 7 feet. And so the applicant settled on 6 feet for their rear setback. And then along the south side, it's a bit of a complicated situation with overlapping parking and utility easements and jogging property lines. So the proposal there is actually to touch the property lines, but as the right angles of the walls jog in and out, they do provide a little relief off those property lines as well. Talking a little bit about the variance, I'll get into the proposal here is to have 1 parking space where 2 are required. I'm not going to read all of this, but I highlighted a few. So we're really looking for, with a variance, is some unique limitation inherent with the property, size, shape, topography. And we're also looking under B here, we're looking at bringing the property back to parity. So if there's some privilege enjoyed by other properties or if a full standard would be applied, would be penalizing a property. And then also not to grant a special privilege. So getting into a bit of the analysis with this project and property specifically, the lot size, 1,455 square feet. So when you're taking a look at 2 parking spaces, you've got a footprint of 400 square feet. And on that ground level, you're accounting for 28% of the lot. And so the proportionality, even a relatively small 2,800 square foot, 40 by 70 lot, that's double of just the ground space. So there's a limit in just what can be done in terms of ground floor layout. The flood zone, a little bit more of an indirect impact, but certainly impacts the layout and adjacencies relative to the ground floor. The lot depth, probably the easiest one to point at in terms of limitation. Because the lot is only 23 feet wide at the front, tandem setup is really the only way this could work. But with an average 48-foot depth and then accounting for 6-foot front and rear setbacks. And on the front, I mentioned a few slides ago, the setback is taken from the curb, but from the property line, it is 6 feet. So with a loss of 12 feet on the front and back, you've got 36 feet of depth. You can't accommodate 40 feet for a standard parking space. And then just the general irregularity of the lot is the final factor. So 23 feet at the front, there's no parallel lot lines, and the lot tapers and jogs in a couple of different locations. So to prove it further, the applicant's design and architect team went through a couple of iterations of what would a tandem garage look like. And I'll just call out that these tandem configurations even utilized the substandard 9 by 18 foot parking spaces. So going from the left, if they arranged that on the right-hand side of the building, they didn't really like this substandard arrangement because of what it did to the junior ADU. It really limits the junior ADU. The one in the middle really just bisects the floor plan and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Given the floodplain, it's just not a functional floor plan. And so they decided to just request 1 standard parking space and a variance for reduction of the standard by 1. When we look at other actions along this stretch of Capitola Avenue, 401 Capitola Avenue was given a variance to allow no parking in 2015. Different set of circumstances, but the lot size and configuration was certainly part of that analysis. 322 Capitola Avenue, very similar, was also allowed a variance for no parking. And then just recently, we had earlier this year a request for a floor area variance to provide all of the parking, but nonetheless a variance granted in relation to parking. And then just looking around the neighborhood,
maybe the majority of properties don't have what would be considered compliant parking. A lot of them are in some kind of a legal non-conforming situation, and many of them don't provide a parking space on the property. One cleanup item I have is just that in going through some of these iterations, the plans that were attached to the staff report didn't account for a full 10 by 20. So I've plotted that here in the blue. I've talked to the applicant about the options for this, how to solve this, because we do need to fit a 10 by 20 parking space in here. I've also talked to the building official. This garage really doesn't need a secondary door, so removal of the stairs is probably the easiest option. May not be preferential, but additionally, there's other options in moving this wall back a little bit and adding a beam because it is carrying a load overhead. So we're asking to add a condition that to allow the staff to just work out an interior solution to provide the full 10 by 20 foot clear garage. And then I need to make another amendment to condition number 20. So recently, state of California has superseded local authority for filing deed restrictions associated with accessory dwelling units and requiring owner occupancy. But in discussing that with the city attorney today, I was informed that that doesn't apply to junior ADUs. So adding number C to condition number 20 that's in the staff report is another amendment. So with that, with those two amendments, we are recommending approval, and I do believe the applicant is here and prepared to make a presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you.
You go back to your one about the 10 by 20 garage. Where's the beam?
So we were just talking about solutions. So if this wall were to move back about a foot, and the staircase was narrowed from 3.5 feet to 3, and this door was moved, you've got a situation where a load was coming down vertically, but it would have to transfer laterally.
We hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Brian, for your great help on this project.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Just speak directly into the microphone, the sound guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for your help shepherding this project through to this point, and good evening, commissioners. I was hoping maybe we could put up the slide that shows the materials. I think it was on page 110 of your documents. This project obviously sits directly across the street from where we meet tonight in an eclectic neighborhood with a mix of both commercial and residential structures. The proposal was initially inspired by the simple, colorful forms, materials, and elements along Capitola's iconic beachfront, blended with a more restrained Mediterranean palette, comprising of crisp whites, watery indigo blues, copper and bronze metal details, washed wood tones, and hints of terracotta. CAD drawings often appear flat. However, the proposed project has an articulated form with a stepped facade, recessed entry and upper balcony, added trellises, arches that recess and have inset tile, breeze block providing a variable difference in shadow across the sides, and all of these elements offer architectural interest to the street facade. The form of the house is a direct result of the constraints of the site and desire to be respectful to adjacent neighbors at both the sides and rear, while adding a JADU to the town's housing stock. This prompted the setback exceptions, as well as the variance request, reducing the home's parking to one space. If you could add the diagram with what we looked at for the. We explored many options to try to meet the town's parking requirements, and as Brian pointed out, what we're showing actually is even substandard and would require additional dimension to be taken off the setbacks, especially at the rear, which was a concern to us respecting that neighbor who has a tiny little sliver of outside space there. It also, if we moved the tandem garage around on the floor plan on the property with the floodplain, either eliminated the option for a JADU that could also qualify as an ADU because it is one bedroom, a living and a separate living area, not just a little studio apartment. So I think after looking at all of the different configurations from a space planning perspective, we decided that the best approach to provide a JADU, a functional single car garage, and access to an upper level single family residence worked best with this variance. There was also neighborhood, it's also part of the neighborhood character. Please do not hesitate to ask me any questions or the owner, Ed, who is here, about any of the documents or proposed design elements. We're excited to create a new home that fits within the eclectic neighborhood and enhances the built environment with quality architectural materials and details. We hope you take staff's recommendation to approve our project.
Thank you very much. We bring it back to commission to discuss.
Yeah, sure. Could you bring up the parking, the garage again thank you, Brian. And so just so I understand that was a item that was overlooked and it's brought up tonight as a discussion point.
Yeah, the original plan had a 25-foot deep garage. And then the second revision shortened the garage to accommodate the curb setback. And I think the applicant was still considering whether a tandem space would fit. And in the end, yeah, I didn't notice this. So I'm fine taking responsibility, but I think there's multiple ways to solve this issue. And the suggestion is, if the commission is comfortable to allow us to work it out, it'll be within the walls of the building. There's a structural solution or just an abandonment of the stair and door.
You think there's multiple ways that it can be resolved?
Yeah, the building official even suggested, depending on the way that the joists go, there may be an allowance to where you wouldn't even need a beam. So we believe there's 3 or 4 ways that this could be solved.
I think we concur that that's a solvable solution that we can handle at staff level, that there's multiple choices that the owner can choose between.
Thank you. Maybe I might have more, but go ahead. If anybody else has.
The loft height is pretty low.
It is.
So, I don't know, is there a minimum on how high the loft can be?
Well, we have a rear setback that starts it out low with the kickback roof, and then it does extend out.
Even at its maximum height, it's like 4'8" or something, pretty small.
I think we're at 4'8" at the back. Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, I'm just wondering if it's a useful space, but that's for your,
Yeah, I think the owner finds it to be useful space, whether that's for storage or other amenities in the house for him and his family. There's very limited, if any, storage in a tiny house like this on the lot, and no storage in the garage for any equipment to take down to the water or anything.
Can I ask a couple questions about design? Can I see the elevation slides? The rear elevation particularly, and the that one too. I know we don't, so that's not a window, it's a kind of a void in the front of the second story facade, the big archway.
The archway is just a big recessed or just a big opening onto an upper level balcony.
You intend to put plants and stuff in there?
Yes, the intent is to have planting on the railing and then also a little bit of planting bed down at the front entry. And then on the right-hand side, you can kind of see that square area with a different material. That's a breeze block that you can see in the center of the materials panel in the right-hand picture,
Okay.
which is a dimensional architectural element that has a terracotta color to it.
And then on the rear, the rear elevation, I think I noticed
I'll have to load the,
oh, sorry,
what's not in the.
in the presentation. I just noticed on the staff report, there was a mansard roof on the back with a comp finish.
That's to meet the daylight plane.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was wondering because it just seemed like a really strange application on the rear side, just an afterthought. And I know we can't really change or influence your design. I was just wondering, what the reasoning was behind that. It just looked kind of funky, but in just my opinion.
No, I mean, I agree that when we're clipping the project for the daylight plane, it's a piece of roofing material that isn't seen elsewhere
Yeah.
on the project.
Yeah.
But I think it was the desire to get the maximum head height and then flow off the roof in other directions to scuppers. So that was a direct response to the daylight plane. I suppose, Ed, we would be amenable to making that just an all stucco deeper parapet that slopes down and eliminating the comp shingles, which then maybe makes it more consistent with the.
It's just comments on the design. I mean, I don't think we can require that. Is that right? I would just rather see a parapet than a comp roof section on the back side, but I don't want to make that,
That's within your purview of a design.
Okay.
permit.
I think we're fine to make it stucco.
Okay. And then also, going to the front elevation one more time, if you could.
So those are on A 3.1, Brian, which is, I think, sheet number 115 in your package. Maybe we can zoom in on just the front elevation.
The plan, I'll just stand by. I'll pull up the plan.
Actually, I passed. That was another thing on the front facade. I apologize. Thank you. Thanks for your answers. I appreciate it. Is there any other questions?
On the southeast side, where you're facing the building next door, did you do a window-to-window analysis to look at privacy concerns?
We did look at privacy concerns, and that's how you see where we have transom windows versus egress windows. It's also on that right-hand side where we've incorporated that breeze block so that the balcony is not directly overlooking the space below.
Good.
And that's more easily seen on sheet A 3.2, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, 3.2. So
That long side faces the kind of that utility and parking easement. In the window that you see, that's the largest window, is an egress window for the bedroom that's there. After working with Brian and the neighbors behind that are most impacted from a window dropping into residential space, we chose to put transoms on the back and put the egress window on that side.
Got it.
And then the high transom windows that you see, the little squares, that's the public space. So the biggest window is in a private space on the property.
Is there, in terms of the parking variance, is there was there a main decision as to why not to concentrate parking on the lower story where the floodplain exists and not put the JADU somewhere other than level 1?
I think with the size of the lot
Yeah.
and the setbacks and the height requirements, it was impossible to get both the 2-bedroom residence and a JADU.
Mhm.
Moving to the single car garage on the bottom actually allowed for an ADU that could be a junior ADU as submitted, but could be classified as a legal ADU because it is large enough with a separate bedroom and a true kitchen in it. And we felt the benefit was better for that rather than a little studio that's really not functional as an ADU, right?
Yeah.
So,
Let's see. Do we have any further questions or do you want to deliberate?
Yeah, just one other question. So help me on this. It's a junior ADU and it could be an ADU. You lost me on those comments. I apologize.
There are state requirements for classifying a JADU and an ADU. And I think this also can roll into the deed restriction requirements that maybe we were discussing today. And I would defer to the town attorney on a lot of that, but, the unit as shown from a square footage perspective qualifies as a JADU. However, the layout that was designed can actually qualify it as a full ADU and not a junior ADU, even though it is attached.
I guess my question would be, and so could later on, if we come back, have the JDU changed to an ADU?
It could, it meets both definitions. So as an independent entrance, it's under 500 square feet. It's got its own cooking facility and a bathroom. There's some differences in terms of utility connections. So an ADU proper needs its own utilities and meters. A JADU can operate under.
And so I guess where I was getting to is just a concern with being in the rental district. Then if it was an ADU, it would then go into the vacation rental program?
It cannot be a vacation rental in either case. It's the owner occupancy requirement that's really the difference between it.
Okay, thank
Which
you.
I think you can find language in condition 20 in your packet for that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Is it true that they could use either one as a vacation rental, being in the vacation rental district?
Any ADU in the VRU zone cannot be rented for less than 30 days.
Right, the main house though?
Main house could be.
That's okay. Okay, any further questions?
No.
Thank you. Any further deliberation? Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah.
Public comment?
Oh,
Sorry.
Public comment.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I skipped the public. Is there any people in the public that would like to speak on this besides the applicant? Hearing none? Oh, thank you.
Dan Townsend. We're the owners, the neighbors of the 3 properties right next. So just point of clarification, it seems like the variance requested is to allow an ADU. Seems to me it's posed as this ADU is some kind of requirement. It's not. The commission is trading an ADU for a parking space, bottom line. We're not opposed to that, but just want to make that clear. Also, a question for Brian is on the landscape plan, there's specific landscape requirements, percentages, just were those met?
Does the commission want to ask staff that question?
Oh, yeah. We look at the landscape plan to see if the percentages were met.
Yeah, so we'll zoom in here. So there's 7 pittosporum. There's a condition of approval that pittosporum is a pretty broad species. So we've added a condition that those be a tree variety of pittosporum to meet the standard. 15% canopy coverage is only just a hair over 200 square feet on this property. So 2 or 3 of those trees would cover the canopy coverage, and they have 7 of them.
Are you counting the banana trees?
I only counted the pittosporum. There's other ornamental trees were not counted in the canopy.
Did you want?
That doesn't really answer the question. The question was, were the landscape requirements met? And not the specific type of landscaping, but were they met, the requirements? There's a percentage for the front yard.
Yep.
As you know, we know. But that was it.
Okay. Thank you. In terms of the landscape, was the percentages met for the front and rear yards?
So the question I answered was with regard to
The trees.
the canopy coverage.
Yeah, I'm going to look up the percentage now. Non-residential zoning districts, there's a 5% requirement in the mixed-use neighborhood of minimum landscaped area. And all required front and street side setback areas shall be landscaped, excluding areas required for access to the property and public and quasi-public open space, such as courtyards or outdoor seating. Minimum of 5%, and then in the MUN zoning district, up to 75% of the minimum landscaped area may be occupied by outdoor dining areas, courtyards, and other similar quasi-public areas with planning commission approval. Hardscape areas counting towards landscaping requirements must contain above-ground planters and other similar features that incorporate greenery and plantings into the space design. In all other zoning districts, these areas may not count towards the landscaping requirement. Any concern?
No, not for me.
Anything to add? I think utilizing a 1,500 square foot lot is, I mean, difficult. Does that satisfy? I mean, I should address. Okay. Anything else to add? No? We have a motion or any further deliberation?
I was going to suggest, I think there's a landscape condition that we typically, a standard condition for landscaping. And if you'd like staff to make sure during the final review before planning, before building permit, we can definitely do that to make sure the minimum of 5% is included in these plans or included in the building submittal.
The rear yard is larger than 5%.
So you would add that to condition 19? I guess.
We can double check it.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the project located at 1013 Capitol Avenue.
Second that.
Are those motions including all the conditions?
Yes, I'm sorry, the conditions that were laid out.
So that includes a minor modification in the condition 19 in addition of condition 28 for the increasing the size of the garage.
Thank you.
Hearing a first and a second, do we want to make a roll call?
Commissioner Esty,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jensen.
Aye.
And Chair Christensen.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Item C is the housing element update. Updates on the 6th cycle certification, implementation, and annual report.
We want to get the other commissioner.
Grab the other question. Sean will. Slides just because I can see them.
Did you?
Worry about anything.
Was it a new bench? The new benches, too.
No, we sit on the,
Oh, okay.
it's a little warmer. inside.
Housing element?
Good evening, planning commissioners. I'm going to give you a quick update on all things housing in Capitola geared towards our housing element. our annual reporting requirement, and then also our lovely list of 80 items to accomplish in the next 3 years. So quick update on our housing element. The last time we discussed at our last meeting, the support for an increased height from up to 60 to 75 feet on this discussion is entirely for the mall site. And so there was support at both Planning Commission and City Council to increase the height, to also remove the floor area from the garage calculations, to include objective standards to ensure mitigation of those two items, including wrapping the garages as well as stepping the buildings away from the streets. Within, when we got to City Council, the representative David Geiser from Merlone Geyer brought up that they still had one more issue, and that was the number of affordable units tied to the mall property, and that it financially would not be feasible, although the number of units was feasible within the new envelope. That was an overburden of burdensome in terms of the number. So following that meeting, the City Council directed us to continue to move forward and prepare the document for HCD while working with Merlone Geyer. So tonight I'm bringing you an update on this to let you know what we've been working with Merlone Geyer. Met with them several times over the past 2 weeks. We plan to meet again next week once I have more of the language updated. But in terms of numbers in your packet, additional sites are proposed within the mall area, which includes the area between Clares Street, 41st Avenue, and Capitola Road. So you're seeing the added sites on the slide. And in talking with them, the revisions include the 15% for inclusionary housing. That's a requirement by code that they would have to follow. Also, we're suggesting that in terms of moderate units, that there would be that we can include towards our housing element, a minimum of 5% moderate. And this is without including deed restrictions on those units, just by design and having a variety of sizes within the mall site. They'll have a number of studio units that would most likely rent at moderate rates. If for some reason those numbers don't line up, then we might have to look at other sites or go into further negotiations. But at this point, I think it's safe to say, and Merlone Geyer wasn't too worried about the extra 5% on there for moderate, as long as it's not deed restricted. So we also looked at, so this is on the top, the 4 lines are exactly what Merlone Geyer Partners owns. And then at the bottom, the other properties on the site. And of note is that the Kohl's site is not included, nor is the parking lot that extends out from the food court and kind of wraps around Target, because there's long-term agreements for parking there. We did include the area around Takara Restaurant that also has long-term parking, but it was included in their original 2019 proposal. And we think they could modify that site could be worked with, because we've seen them submit prior. And this is just showing the 2 parcels that are not included. I asked RRM to include what is the build out of those sites, just so we're aware. And the Kohl's site is significant at almost 6 acres. So it could generate quite a few sites in the future based on this breakdown. And then also that parking site, it's just a little over 3 acres, and there could also be sites. So even though they're asking us not to include it, I just want to make the Planning Commission aware of what could happen. So I will be bringing, the plan next is I'll be bringing an update to City Council next week on the housing element. As soon as I have the draft ready to put on our website for public review, we will do that. And that will start the 7-day public review process, and then we will submit to the HCD. And I'm happy to bring this back at any time during that process, but just to get those, we're hoping to get red lines from HCD. Any questions? Okay. Our implementation plan. So the housing element is set up that the last chapter is your housing, or not the last chapter, second to last chapter is your housing plan. It includes your goals, policies, and programs. We have at this point committed to about 80 items. I will say many of them overlap, and many of them are zoning code updates. So in this table, I got a large spreadsheet of all 80 items. I've put them into different categories. And so on this slide, I just go through the thought process of how we'll be doing this. So agency coordination, that's something that we'll be working with local nonprofits and other agencies to provide information to the public. And that's just going to be ongoing throughout the cycle. Developer interest outreach, we'll be doing an annual outreach, and I'm hoping to do this in May, so that during Affordable Housing Month, and we can do a lot of our agency coordination at that time too by having some type of open house, inviting nonprofits to talk, and I'll bring more to you on that in the future, but that's the goal, is to kind of host an event and let people know what we are doing in terms of housing, as well as hear from the nonprofits on what other resources are out there. Emergency rental assistance, this is a program we already have in place, and it's managed by a third party, so that's a requirement, but we're already doing that, so that we continue to fund that every year. A fee study update, this is due in 2026. It's dependent on whether or not our inclusionary housing is working. Right now, it is working just fine, but if we run into more issues because of current economics, we'll have to relook at that study. We just finished that in 2020, I want to say, so pretty recent. Homebuyer assistance program. That program will be utilizing redevelopment funds. We have some housing redevelopment funds, and I'll be bringing that program forward soon. I'm going to start working with our city attorney on looking at other programs that are available. I know Watsonville has a successful program that you can get up to, I think, $20,000 in home buyer assistance. And that would be either a grant or a loan program, most likely a silent second loan, so that the money would come back into our housing fund over time. And then a buyer's assistance administration, the administration of the ongoing process, in which we would use a third party like the Housing Authority to carry that out. And then the incentives, we've already started those discussions. And that's related to the update of the zoning code. Our mobile home programs will be ongoing. We'll be monitoring our rent control, and if there's ever an opportunity for purchase and how we can assist. Progress reports and monitoring, that's ongoing. I'm going to show you what we produced in 2023 next. Public information, again, that kind of ties into those developer interest outreach and really inviting all of the community members to come together and talk about housing for a day in Capitola. We're also going to initiate a rehabilitation program. I think we set a goal of 2 units per year. So we'll have to set up just what the parameters of that are. And then once we have the program in place, we'll hire a third party to administer that program. Security deposit program is something we already have, and it's managed by a third party. Technical guides and ADUs, we'll update those on whenever the building code is updated. And then municipal code updates, which you know we're currently working on. So any questions regarding the list?
So this implementation plan is something that the HCD is looked at already, or they insisted on this, or how did you deal with the HCD with regards to the implementation plan?
So I grabbed everything out of the draft. What will happen to the 80 items next year when we do our annual reporting, there's actually a page that you have to list all your deliverables, and then you have to tell HCD where you are in the process. So that will, we will be reporting on these annually.
This is their checklist?
No, this is my checklist. This is my list of how, just to let you know how we're going to be implementing this and how we're going to move forward with everything we've committed to.
And is this implementation plan part of the the housing element submittal?
No, this is your community development director coming to you to just let you know that I am putting together this planning effort, and I think we can meet these requirements within the next 3 years. So it's really a staff-led effort to just provide you with an update and let you know that this is doable.
With regards to the housing element, but we've submitted everything to the HCD and we're waiting for their response again.
No, so we're updating the information for the Capitola Mall and the site's inventory update. We also have to update a lot of our maps and there's a lot of information that because we've changed the site's inventory, it changes items throughout the general or the housing element. So we plan, I'm hoping to publish the updated housing element with the redlined edits after the city council meeting next Thursday, so probably that Friday. And then we need to wait a week and make it available for public comment before we can resubmit to HCD.
Has that been pre-coordinated with them at all in terms of the rezoning of the maps and whatnot?
We were supposed to meet with HCD this week and it's been bumped to next week because they had to cancel the meeting. So we are going to coordinate ahead of time and get in it. They've reviewed what we initially put together, but with the mall reconfiguring. Any other questions on this?
I think I heard comments before from the commissioner. With those list of things that you have to do, how does that work into the staffing you have?
It's challenging. It is challenging. So I have had multiple nonprofits reach out to assist us with the agency coordination and also just some of the public information. And I'm going to be leaning on those, taking them up on their offer. One example is I met with YIMBY recently. One of our items that we have to do is keep an active, monitor sites which could be developed for housing. And that's more of something that a real estate firm would put together. And YIMBY, during this initial meeting, said they think that's one item that they could take on. Another Santa Cruz housing group is willing to work with us on setting up the Affordable Housing Day in May, in which we can have just local nonprofits come and talk about affordable housing and also have information on our programs that we have in place.
So, the city has a general plan fund. And I'm assuming that that money can be spent on programs that are required as far as updating the housing element as a source of revenue to hire consultants and third-party people to help with this?
Yes, and we also have a housing trust fund, which can also be used for assisting us with that. So there was our first budget discussion last night, or visioning for city council. And the items that I included in there for the budget were the rehabilitation program of about $30,000 going towards our city attorney to create that program, as well as the home buyers assistance program. So right there, it's not, we won't be drafting it, our city attorney will be drafting it, and then city council will adopt it. So we do have those income sources to assist us with getting help.
Thank you.
Right now, we're technically in the builder's remedy period, right?
Yes.
Has anybody approached us?
No one has approached us. Brian, do you have any?
I don't know if that's good news or bad news. I mean, bad news in the sense that nobody's interested in Capitola.
I did hear that I know that other cities are hearing from developers about being approached. So we're not hearing any of that. So I think
No, that's true. We don't.
yeah. The requirement for affordable housing is higher. We're at 15%. For builder's remedy, it's at 20%. So you'd have to provide more affordable units. And we allow housing in all of our commercial areas. And you typically see this in commercial areas in which they don't allow housing because it's by right under builder's remedy. Okay, next. Annual housing report. So where are we? Our annual housing report is due on April 15th of every year. whenever you have a new unit within so we're looking at 2023, any units that received their building permit are counted towards 2023. So the list you're seeing here is 15 housing units that were developed, 14 of which are ADUs, one single family. When we redevelop a single family home, it doesn't count unless there's an additional unit. So many of these were tied to the redevelopment of a single family home with the addition of an ADU. You're only seeing that when it adds on. The good news here is that our 4401 Capitola Road project with 36 units, that was approved on January 1st of this year. So that's going to count towards next year's RENA. And this list will count towards the 8th cycle because they do an overlap of the 2023. So I also put together what we did in our last housing, in the whole housing cycle. So for the fifth cycle, 75 units were developed of the 143 assigned, so a little over half. 7 of them were very low, 3 were moderate, and 65 were above moderate. So that will close out the 5th cycle for us. And these numbers are good, but I think like moving into the next year, we've got the 36 units at 4401, and then we'll be seeing at our next meeting in April, the 52 units on 38th Avenue. So between those two, we'll have surpassed our 5th cycle on the first year of the 6th cycle. So that's an accomplishment. With that, I'm available for questions, but that concludes my update on housing. Okay.
Thank you, Katie. Is there any questions? Nobody? Yes.
Is there a director's report?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. The next one.
I'll probably have a more in-depth director's report for you at the next meeting. The preparation for our first item tonight is quite intense. So I will have more information for you. The big thing was just knowing that Capitola Avenue will be closed. There was one other item that I wanted to update you on. Next week at the city council, we're going to be looking at whether or not to go back to Zoom platform. There'll be an update from our city clerk. I know that was something that came up on our list of discussion items. So stay tuned, and then I'll bring you an update at the special hearing on that. Okay.
Okay.
I just had one other question. Sorry, I keep asking. Any update on seeing with we were going to have like a rendering done of I'm sorry to keep always asking, but I'm just interested to see what that would look like. We're talking about
So we did receive the rendering,
Okay.
and it's great and it's informative. I think I can bring it to the planning commission. It was advised by Veronica Tam and Associates that we not add anything new that we could get, so not add it to the actual housing element. But I think it would be a great resource in which we could utilize as an informational item, that we could have something on our website about how to provide housing on a.
and I just think it's important, like to have, conceptual thing like that without a project connected to it or any emotion connected to it. And I look forward to seeing that whenever that.
Yeah.
And then just one other question. With some of the items that we had coming out of our work session, was 2 meetings ago or something like that, was there going to be a follow back up on that, like on some of those items, like we were talking about the potential about bringing the architectural review committee back and stuff like that? What's the game plan for having those items brought back and discussing in more detail?
So Ben Noble and I are meeting next Monday to discuss how far he's made it with updates. We'll be bringing you, I think, for some items that it's really cut and dry, the actual language that we're recommending, and for others that we need more guidance on, we'll be bringing you options. So he's drafting and working on those updates. So they're in the works. I don't have timing for you. I know our April meeting is extremely packed. April meeting, you'll see most likely, as long as all the environmental documents are completed, the 38th Avenue project for Mid-Penn, so 52 units. You'll also see tree removal permits for, you've probably noticed the trees that are tagged along Park Avenue. That's work that Public Works has identified. We had an arborist go out and identify all the trees that are unsafe. That will be coming forward. There's also a property owner that lives adjacent to, right at the end of Escalona, or El Salto, Escalona. And they've got a number of trees that they also need to remove. So we're going to be bringing that tree removal application forward. I think it's in the range of between 22 to 30. We had to issue some emergency permits. So it was 30 originally, but the number's gone down. And then we have a couple use permits. One is for a new beer or a brewery establishment at the Capitola Mercantile. And the second is for moving the cannabis store that is on the Gross Road extension to that brick building when you come into Capitola on 41st Avenue that is curved. Yeah, so so you have a very busy planning commission. So we'll have our wharf follow-up special hearing that we'll have to adjourn to this evening, and then a very busy April meeting.
With the trees on Park Avenue, will there, I'm quite sure that, I mean, I know there's some safety issues wrapped around that, but with the trail issue and all that, is there going to be some overlap on how that's connecting and that, so it's communicated those trees are being taken out for different reasons and that it's not around the trail aspect?
So this will be the city's, this is our application to remove trees because of safety. So not connected to the RTC. The RTC tree removal permit will be separate.
Okay.
Speaking of trees, did I see last night that you actually put on your agenda an update to the tree ordinance as your list of things to do next year?
Things that we can't get to yet, but we know we should be, we need to do.
So, okay.
That was, yeah. That and historic guidelines were, we're not ready to fund those items and they're really staff intensive, but items that we'd like to do. One thing that in the initial budget discussions that was supported by City Council was to look at economic development initiatives along the 41st Avenue corridor and putting money towards a study so that we can take some action as the city to ensure the long-term economic health of 41st Avenue. So that's exciting.
Great. Anything else? Anything else to add?
The only other thing is, would anyone like large plans for the 38th Avenue project? Rather, because it's multiple buildings and
Yes.
everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much. All right. Then that takes care of everything. We are adjourned till March 21st at what time? 6.
If we could do 5 p.m.,
Okay.
that would be preferred. Is that okay?
Yep. March 21st, 5 p.m. Thank you, everyone.